this is pure value for 50 straight minutes. We talked about CRO, we talked about the future of it, we talked about how they're proceeding with their 8-figure and 9-figure clients. And you learn so many tricks and so many things from behind the curtains that you probably don't know, but you need to know. So absolutely, definitely watch the episode, and stay tuned for more. But for now, just enjoy the episode. Okay, we're live, and welcome to the third episode of the Marketamics podcast. Today, we have one of the rising stars of the e-commerce and conversion rate optimization world, Carl Weische. Welcome, Carl, to the Marketamics podcast.
Hey, brother. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to finally record this episode with you.
Yes, we were postponing this episode for such a long time that it's a funny story, but maybe we'll have it as a blooper someday. Anyways, I just wanted to get this episode started very quickly, and I've been following your progress, and we've had talks in the past as well. And I love what you're doing. And since, as I said, you're one of the rising stars in the e-commerce world, I really want to get this episode started with an introduction on what you do, since not too many people know you yet, but they need to know you because what you're doing is amazing. So if you wanted to just touch base on your professional path, how you just got started in conversion rate optimization and what you're doing, what are your biggest successes there?
Okay, sweet, for sure. So my journey started when I was like 15, 16 years old, when I started to get really, really obsessed with psychology. Initially, I wanted to use psychology to influence myself and motivate myself and use it for like personal development reasons, right? So those were my first touch points with psychology. And then I just got obsessed, started reading a tons of books about psychology, every single psychology book that I could get my hand on from the local library. Started watching hours and hours of Tony Robbins seminars, went to seminars myself, and then all of the stuff around psychology. And then over time, I also had this vision of becoming an entrepreneur. So I started selling online. The first thing I did when I was 16 was buying and reselling limited sneakers like Yeezy Boost, Supreme, Jordans, and everything. And then during my university year, I started building our own e-com brand and also did Amazon FBA. And that's where I met my now co-founder, Lars. And now he and I are running the agency together where we do CRO. And back then, he was a freelancer for conversion rate optimization, right? So we met. I kind of hired him to work on our brand. And that's when I had the first touch point with conversion rate optimization and sales and consumer psychology. And for me, it was like two worlds colliding, right? Yeah, I had the passion of e-commerce, selling online, and then also this like huge background of psychology. And for me now, it was like bringing both of those together in one thing, which is conversion optimization. And then over time, I slowly transitioned from the brand to the agency together with him. Now for like the past 2.5 years, we've been building that together.
And that's great. And from what I'm hearing, you're achieving bigger and bigger success right now with your agency. What are you focused on right now when it comes to conversion rate optimization? What type of clients are you working with at the moment?
So our focus of clients is 8-figure D2C brands. We have like 26, 8, and some of them even 9-figure D2C brands. The niches that we mostly work with are health, beauty, and fashion. So those are like the niches that we like to be in. I like to call them IG brands, right? With these like sexy products, younger demographic. They look really good. They have a wide range of SKUs. And yeah, they know what they do. So we don't work with beginners or drop shippers or like 6-7-figure brands, but rather with the more established brands.
And you mentioned psychology, and that's great because I feel like CRO has been a little bit of a controversial topic in the e-commerce world, because some would say that's complete bullshit. It's not something that you actually need in your business, in your brand. But how do you look into conversion rate optimization? Like, what's your philosophy of conversion rate optimization? How should people look into conversion rate optimization?
Yeah, really interesting topic. I feel like conversion optimization is mostly overlooked in like the e-commerce realm, just because people don't really understand what it means. People think conversion rate optimization is throwing a couple of payment providers and store benefits on the landing page, right? That's what people think it is. I think it's all about tactics and hacks and quick wins and like a couple of tweaks that you can do on your landing page and you're good, right? But what conversion rate optimization really is this mixture of understanding data and applying psychology to what you're doing, right? It's like the balance of those two and the connection of those two. What I mean by that is that you have to understand your target audience and your market and who you're selling to, and then also get a more deeper understanding of what's their psychology. Why are they buying from you, right? What are the pain points? What are the motives, beliefs, and desires? Everything that you do as a basis on how you do the creators and how you run the ads and the performance marketing, but then apply to the store. Because everybody's just focused on the ads and on the marketing and put all the efforts and energy in there. And then you spend a fuck ton of money on traffic, right? A lot of brands spend 100K, 200K, 500K, or a couple of millions per month on ads, on pushing traffic to a page. And it may even be really high quality traffic, right? But then they don't care what happens in the second step within the funnel on the page. Then they may again care about what happens in the retention and customer lifetime value, but they kind of miss this part in between, like the conversion rate optimization. And the main thing, and that's like why we focus on it so much, is what you can do with conversion rate optimization. And that's where the name comes from. You boost conversion rate, you boost average order value, and you increase the revenue per user. And that simply means that your traffic will get way more profitable. You can increase your ROAS and you can increase your profits, right? Just because more of the clicks that you push to the funnel are actually converting and getting you the money. So that's why it's so essential. And that's why, especially if you're at a certain revenue threshold, I like to say somewhere around 300 to 500K a month, then you should definitely start doing CRO, because then you can get another 10, 20, 30% in ad performance out of it just by tweaking the funnels.
Yeah, and with bigger numbers, that means that the impact is huge. So for a brand that's making like $500,000 a month, 10% increase in sales could be like a huge thing for their profits in general.
Yeah, definitely. So with these 8-figure brands, and that's why we like them so much, we do a couple of tweaks on a page. We increase conversion rate by 5 to 10%, and that's a couple $1 million in additional revenue that they will make a year, just because of this, what seems like a tiny improvement on their conversion rate.
I mean, that's great. I have this question. What's your favorite conversion rate optimization myth that people have in the e-commerce world?
I think a myth is that they think it's like the same for like every store, right? It's same if I would say you can use the same score stopper for every creative that you do. Doesn't matter the product, right? So they think on every single store you can do the same stuff and it's always the same. Like you can always add the trust badges and the payment providers under the call to action, and it's going to increase your revenue, right? They think I think that's the biggest myth there is around the whole topic of CRO.
Since I started this podcast so that we can share really valuable information to our listeners and to everyone who's interested in e-commerce, what's the most important data that you're looking at when you're working with a new client? You get a new project. What do you do? What's the data that's super important for you? What's the first things?
Really interesting. We should do another podcast where I can jump into screen sharing and run you through like a whole slide deck.
We can absolutely do that.
Sweet. Okay, but right now I'm gonna just keep it to like kind of my words. So the first kind of data that we like to look at is we use tools Google Analytics and Hotjar to get an understanding of how people interact with the page, right? First of all, we want to get this understanding, what's the usual customer journey that people take throughout the funnel or throughout the store? And then also, how are they interacting within the store, right? So we love to look at these Hotjar user recordings to understand how far do they scroll, where do they click, where do they spend time, what are sections or paragraphs where they just scroll by, where they don't care about it, and then also what happens, right? So example given, somebody puts a product into the cart and then the cart drawer opens, they look at the cart drawer, but then they jump off of it again because they are not ready to buy it. They don't have enough trust into the brand yet or something like that, right? So that's what we look out for. So basically, to really conclude this, there are 4 factors that play into people converting from a prospect to a customer. So you have to motivate them, you have to show them the value, you have to reduce the friction and remove the anxiety. These are like the 4 main things. So we like to watch out for in the customer journey when we look at these user recordings is, where's friction appealing, right? Where are they stuck? Where they may not understand how to navigate, or what button to click, or what to click, or what action to do. What are steps in the customer journey where we can get them more motivation or remove the anxiety, right? Perfect example for this would be in the cart drawer. We have a lot of brands where they have a huge drop-off rate from add to cart to initiate checkout to checkout
Yes.
completed, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you run brands yourself, you know this drop-off, and you're always like, why are my prospects putting the product in the cart but they're not buying? And you
Yeah.
cannot figure it out. So, for example, what we like to do is to increase the motivation is have a small congratulations text at the top of the cart, what is telling them, hey, Victor, amazing choice. Here are your products. So what we do with that congratulations badge is we give them a small pat on the back, right? And we nudge them into actually buying the product. Because at this essential step in the customer journey, they may have some objections coming up or some anxiety coming up. So we want to support them in the decision of buying the product. So this is like a really beautiful example of how we can apply psychology to boost conversion rates.
Absolutely, that's amazing. Now, when we're moving into, like, what's your biggest suggestions to every e-commerce store owner that's right now looking into CRO? What should they be looking at initially when they're thinking about CRO of their page or of their store in general?
The answer depends on the kind of growth stage that the brand owner is in. If you're more like a $1 to $5 million a year brand, then you should rather focus on the foundations. The foundations being the product market fit and the offer, and then the trust that you display on the page. So like showcasing social proof, showcasing reviews, building authority, establishing trust. If you're more kind of advanced in your growth, like 5 to 10 million a year or even more, then you should really focus on creating a process to gather data, understand data, and based on the data, come up with ideas on what to optimize. And then the second step, take those ideas, systematically test those ideas, and then based on that, kind of iterate the current funnel setup that you have.
Amazing. So what about if the brand is even bigger? What about the brands that are making 100 million a year? Like, what's important for them then? They're already making a lot of money. Everyone knows them. Like, what's important for them? What's the difference between a $1 million brand and a $100 million brand CRO?
So for $100 million brand, let's say, for example, the Udi from David Fugati, they build a team in-house that's taking over the complete CRO efforts for the page, right? And that's what's happening with these brands that are turning from like 8-figure brands to 9-figure brands, that it really makes sense for them to invest into building an in-house team of, let's say, like 6 people, for example, where they really have one full-time specialist for every part of the process. So they can hire a data analyst, they can hire a CRO specialist, a designated project manager who has like the e-commerce background, developer, designer, and copywriter. And they have the amount of money to pay for all of those 6 roles, right? And have like a pod structure where they can do all of the CRO efforts themselves. For a brand that's doing 1 million a year, they should rather work with like one consultant, for example, that can give them all of the knowledge so they can apply it themselves. And then for brands that are between 10 million to this like 60, 80, 100 million, where they turn it in-house, for them, it makes sense to hire somebody like to do it with them or do it for them.
Okay, so it's a way that you're working with a CRO expert. And when I go into that topic, and since I have an agency, I have my own e-commerce stores. Very often, our clients or just other e-commerce store owners are asking us, okay, so how do I differentiate a good conversion rate optimization specialist from somebody who's saying that they're doing something, but we don't? So except for the results, before you get burned, what you should be looking into from your conversion rate optimization specialist when hiring?
Great question. Are you talking hiring like internally or hiring an agency?
Hiring an agency, because most of the people that we're speaking with, they're doing between, let's say, $1 and $10 million a year. They're not $100 million. They cannot afford to get a full-time person in there as an in-house person. They're looking for an agency, a freelancer, whatever that can like fit their needs.
Yeah. So what I would look out for, and this doesn't only apply to hiring a SEO agency, this generally applies to hiring anybody, right? What I would look out for, and I can say this even though I own an agency, I would
Mhm.
always analyze the founders, the brands that they work with, the track record, their approach, and what kind of team they give you, right? And then also, are they guaranteeing certain results, or is it more like a test for them? So these are like the biggest like 5 to 6 factors. So it's always going to be the same. Like, what is the background of the agency owner, for example? With you guys, you have brands yourself. You've gone through this whole process of building a brand, scaling a brand. You know the in and outs of running a brand. So you know what to focus on and what to watch out for. So if somebody hires you, they know that you have the expertise to do it for them, right?
Yeah.
So I would really watch out like who built the agency, who are the people behind it, what's kind of like their track record, and their expertise. And then also have them kind of go through exactly what they are going to do with you in terms of like steps, in terms of phases, in terms of how many people they allocate to your store, whatever. And then also for the offer, like, do they have a certain guarantee in the offer, or can they promise a certain result, or is it like more testing? So, and I know this because I had a brand in the past too. I have hired agencies, I fired agencies,
Yes.
and now I'm kind of like in the agency owner role, and I have like the other perspective. So it's like really interesting to see. I mean, same for you. You have both.
Mhm.
But yeah, those are like kind of the efforts that I would look out for. And obviously, at the end of the day, it all comes down to profit. So how much profit can this agency generate for you, right? You pay a certain retainer to the agency, they can scale you or they can get you an additional revenue. How much profit in comparison to how much you're paying the agency is like at the end of the day there for you as the brand owner.
Okay, great. When we're moving into other valuable things in the CRO world, what are your favorite tools? What are your, let's say, top five favorite tools that are coming handy when you're doing CRO?
Yeah. So you need like 2 data tools, one testing tool, and then like a project management tool and a design tool.
Okay.
So kind of the stack that I like to use is Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics.
Okay.
Because with Google Tag Manager, you can kind of decide what data you want to gather, right?
Mhm.
With Google Analytics, it's rather like the data storage and the data analysis, like
Mhm.
dashboard for you where you can look at the data. Then Hotjar is like a really visual form of reporting and data. So like these user recordings, heat maps, click maps, scroll maps, and
Mhm.
everything, which really helps us, for example, to look what's going on. Not only see the KPIs in Google Analytics, but also really see what the people are doing. And then you want to use like a testing tool. So if you want a free one, go with Google Optimize, completely free to run tests yourself. If you are at a certain stage, it makes sense to invest into an enterprise testing solution. We are working with Chameleon because they allow us to run more complex tests and have
Mhm.
more complex tracking. And then you want to have a project management tool and a design tool. But that's really like up to what you like to work with. I like to work with ClickUp and Figma.
Mhm. Yeah.
Maybe people like to work with Asana and Canva, but that's really like up to you then.
Well, Figma is way better than Canva in
Yeah.
that regard for sure. It's not even a question. It's not even a
Yeah.
question. Hopefully, after they got acquired, that they're not going to mess up their software, but we'll
Yeah.
see about that. When you mentioned the Google Tag Manager, and that's interesting. What are you typically tracking that's different from most people? Like, what's important for you to track in most of the cases?
Good question too. So for us, Google Tag Manager, I mean, you have the enhanced e-commerce tracking in
Mhm.
Google
Yeah.
Analytics, right? For all of the main KPIs. With Google Tag Manager, it's kind of the quantitative tracking that Hotjar allows you to do with the qualitative tracking, right?
Hmm.
So, for example, how long are people on the page? How far are they scrolling? You can pinpoint certain elements, like certain buttons, for example. So if we, for example, do a change in the menu and run a test for that, we can set a trigger in Google Tag Manager that only the people who click on the menu and open the menu are allocated within the data of the A/B test. Because if we would just take in all of the data of
Hmm.
everybody on the store, maybe like 20% of people are never seeing the menu because they never open it, right?
Yeah.
So for example, for those kind of scenarios, we need Google Tag Manager to make sure that we have only the data that we need and kind of like cleanse the data. And then generally it's like it allows you to do more complex tracking and more specific tracking.
Okay. And what else? The other thing that you mentioned was the more enterprise solutions for testing. Which are your favorite ones?
Chameleon.
Okay. Anyone?
Yeah.
Like any other solution on the market that you'd recommend, or not really?
I can only speak for Chameleon because that's the software
Hmm.
that we use. I worked with VWO, but I
Hmm.
didn't test out any of the other software. So
Okay.
I cannot recommend them or watch for them because I've never
Yeah.
experienced it.
Okay. What are the biggest red flags when you're doing let's say a CRO audit? What are typically the biggest red flags that people should be looking after?
The biggest red flags is, and you can do really easy tests with that. Like, go to 20 of your friends, give them an iPhone with your store open, and give them an objective, and tell them, "Hey, bro, please buy 2 green lightsabers in this store." Right? And then you can watch them over the shoulder, and they start on the homepage, right, of the landing page, and they have to navigate throughout the store and find like this bundle of 2 green lightsabers, and then buy it, right?
Hmm.
And then like over the shoulder, you can see points where friction arises. So for example, on the homepage, they don't know where to click, like where to get to these green lightsabers. Or in the menu, like the menu is really unstructured. Or in the cart drawer, the call to action is like you have to scroll down for the call to action. So initially, those are like the biggest red flags. Like I like to go through a complete customer journey a couple of times just to see where does friction occur, right? In terms of I want to buy a product, I want to find a certain product, I put the product in the cart, but then the cart drawer is kind of messy.
Hmm.
I'm in the cart, I have to go to the checkout. So that's like where I first focus on because friction is a huge conversion killer. Even if people are motivated, and I see this for myself, you probably have seen this a couple of times.
Hmm.
You go on a website, it looks like shit, and you really want to buy a product, like you're highly motivated. You have your credit card in your hand,
Yeah.
but then it takes 5 minutes and you aren't even at the checkout yet. Yeah, you just skip out of it, right?
Yes. I'm like, no, some other day. I'm tired of
Yeah.
this.
Or like some other store, right? And the same happens with like your users and your traffic. And now imagine somebody isn't really hot and has like a high intent to buy something. Imagine there's somebody with like that's way coder who's just like a bit open or saw
Mhm.
this like really nice creative that you did. And if they get on the store and they want to navigate around and then their friction rises, bro, like you lost them.
Yep.
They're completely out of the journey and you were never going to get them back.
Okay. Great. What else I wanted to ask you is, since we're getting into the Black Friday, Cyber Monday madness, like this episode will air before Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Um, if you have advice for the people and for the e-commerce store owners, one of the points that people are asking about is typically their AOV, their average order value. You said that one of the important elements for you is to increase average order value. What's the easiest ways without making a whole mess in your store? What would you recommend?
There, we should really record another one where I go into the slides. The easiest way to do so is create bundles and create a couple of cross sets and upsets. So you want to have bundles, right? Because then you can frame them on buying multiple products or buying a variety of products at once, right? And that's going to increase your average order value. Just make sure that you're using the right frame in the ads or on the page in the copywriting. or that makes it like that rationalizes why they should buy more at once. Then what you can do is cross sales, right?
Mhm.
Recommended, frequently bought together, something like that on the product page. As soon as they put the product in the cart, have a small pop-up saying, let's say you sell skincare, right? They just
Mhm.
put the face mask in the cart. You have a pop-up that's coming up, and then you future paste them and say, hey, darling, you should, your skin will thank you for this complete routine. And then you say, step 2, buy this skincare. Step 3, buy this renewing serum, right?
Mhm.
And like we make the upsell or cross sell like beautiful for them.
Yeah.
We rationalize it for them. We make it logical to buy this, and we future paste them and say, you're going to get even better results if you buy all 3 of these products and then use this one first, then this one, then this one. So it's not like
Yeah.
we just bombard them with the same product and say, buy the same product 50% off, because they've seen this 100 of times. But we future paste them and we explain to them why they need these 3 products at once. And then it's like much more likely that they actually go to buy it. And then a really, really good way to increase the average order value too is in the checkout process, after they've bought, after they've clicked with their credit card details, clicked on buying, have an additional page where you say your order is confirmed, one-time offer, this beauty set, right? If you're selling skincare. Because here's the thing, from the psychological perspective, as soon as your prospect turns into a customer, they have a huge dopamine rush, a huge dopamine rush. They are completely high at that stage,
Mhm.
right? And the likeliness that they are going to like take this upsell or downsell offer is the highest at that point, just because they have so much dopamine in the system, and they are so happy at that point, right? So that's like the perfect stage to show them an upsell or downsell, like this one-time offer.
Okay. Okay. And many people, especially when they're not still making that much money from their e-commerce stores, very often they are asking me, how do I win trust in in the website, and not just by fake reviews from Trustpilot, not just by 5 stars from 350,000 users that have never existed, like none of the absolute bullshit ways of like just um yeah faking it. Like, how do you win in a genuine way trust? Because you love psychology, you know better how to do that with customers that have no idea what that brand is all about. They just
Yeah,
clicked on a very nice creative.
yeah. Really great question, because trust is like the main currency on the website. For the ads, the main currency is attention, and then on the website, we want to build trust. So
Yeah.
thanks so much for asking. um, Basically, there are a couple of factors that play into trust or that will build trust. First of all, it's like the UX, UI, and the brand experience. Because if you invest into a more like branded store, right, and you go away from these like basic drop shipping themes, and it looks really unique, then you instantly have more trust just because it feels more like a brand, right? It's a lot about how they feel. It's a lot about their emotions, so it feels more like a real brand. Secondly, you have all of these different factors that I will take you through now. First of all, you want to establish authority. You can establish authority by using authority persons. For example, a doctor if you're selling skincare supplements. For example, a fitness influencer if you're selling a weight loss program. For example, a beauty influencer, a fashion influencer if you're selling fashion, right? So you can go through all of that. You can also establish authority by utilizing big brands, payment providers, logistics providers, PR, or whatsoever, of well known companies and logos. Because what happens in the brain of the prospect is that they put these brands in relation with your brand, and they already trust those brands.
Yeah.
So, like, the trust basically transfers to you, right? Because they trust Vogue, they trust this influencer, they watch this TV channel every single day, and then they also read this magazine every single day. All right.
Mhm.
And they've built trust with those over years. And if you as a brand show their favorite influencer, show their favorite TV show, their favorite magazine, and then all of these reviews, like you're going to have so much more trust. I briefly spoke about reviews. You shouldn't fake them. You shouldn't take them from AliExpress. You shouldn't just like copy and paste them. People get, I'm missing the English word, but people get used to seeing that. People can nowadays tell what's fake and what's real.
Yeah.
They've been bombarded for 6-7 years with drop shipping now. They got used to it. They can instinctually say if it's like drop shipping or if it's like trustworthy, right? So if you're using reviews, you want to make sure that you have a beautiful reviews widget where you have the image, where you have something like a badge that's saying verified customer, where you maybe even add their Instagram account, where you tell the name, maybe even the state or location that they bought from, and just like make the whole experience really trustworthy. And the last thing is so-called trust badges, where, for example, we have a badge that's saying, we already have 55,000 happy people in the Obvi community that are using our supplement every single day. Or whatever it may be, right? Those kind of trust badges, or like a guarantee, like we are so confident in our product and that you're going to love it that you have 90-day money back guarantee. If within 3 months after receiving the product, anything happens, you don't like it whatsoever, we will take it back free of charge. So those kind of like trust badges, that's why they're called trust badges, also planted trust. So those are like the 3 big levels that you have for building trust.
Very nice. And you mentioned it briefly, but I wanted to ask you: do you recommend user testing, paid user testing? Do you do that? And do you recommend it for e-commerce brands? Should they do it?
Great
And
question.
how should they do it if they do it?
Yeah, sometimes we do it. That's the example that I was talking about earlier, right? You give it to 20 friends and you look them over the shoulder so they can user test your page. You can do free user testing or like on a really small plan with Hotjar because you have these user recordings. You're not giving them an objective, but that's like the most authentic way of user testing because they don't know that they are being recorded. Not unless they're going into the cookie policies and read through all of that, but nobody's doing that.
Yeah.
And then if you want to like really have experts user tested, or you want to pay like an agency or whatever to find 200 people to do it, that's fine too, but we rather rely on like the user recordings or like actually giving it to people so we can look over the shoulder.
Okay. Some questions from my colleagues from academics that they wanted me to ask you because we have free time right now to get a consultation from you, but but jokes aside, what are the biggest things? What are the biggest trends right now in the CRO world? Like, what's changing? Like, what's different from, let's say, 2 years ago? What are people focusing on right now that's actually working?
It's funny that you asked because on Sunday I'm flying to Dubai to give a presentation on this, to like what you have to do now and over.
I didn't know. Just as a note, I didn't know about that.
So I'm perfectly prepared to like give you the source for that. So it's a trend that we have seen a little bit with some brands this year, but like this is where the industry is going to move towards. Okay. What you have to build are custom funnels that are aligned with your ads that you're running. And what you want to do is based on the awareness stage, based on the emotional stage, and based on like the funnel step that the traffic is in, have a custom funnel in the backend on your store. For example, it's completely different if you send cold TikTok traffic that have seen a 10-second UGC piece to a page, or if you send traffic after 20-minute YouTube views to a page, right? They're in a completely different awareness stage and emotional stage. So what you want to do is, based on these different stages and based on the different traffic channels, is have individual sales funnel set up. What you don't want to do, and what a lot of brands and especially dropshippers are doing, is pushing all of the traffic to the same page. They don't care if it's Facebook, cold, Google retargeting, email, whatsoever. They push it to the collection page or product page, or maybe even the homepage, right? So what you want to do is build out these custom sales funnels. And then the key is, not have collection page, product page, homepage as a first step, but you want to have custom landing pages. And the
Hmm.
formats that are working the best are advertorials, listicles, and then custom landing pages.
Hmm.
And then only afterwards, you want to push them to an offer page or product page, and then to like a checkout. So
Yeah, I wanted to ask you on that. If you're building out, let's say that's a bridge page, basically, or like we had Alex Fedotov on the first episode. We were speaking about a different topic on how to build a sellable business, but he loves advertorials. He's probably the person from whom I've heard the most about advertorials. When you're doing a bridge page, do you recommend it to be a completely different URL, like a different domain, or you want it to be the same domain that you, but like just a different page? It's just not the product page.
I don't really care about the URL.
Hmm.
The customer will not click in the URL and check if it's like a
Okay.
magazine now and then like the brand or whatever. It's more about what you have on the page and what it
Okay.
looks like, right? Advertorial are used so that it looks like a native magazine and not
Okay.
like the brand itself.
Okay.
That's why it's this like kind of bridge that connects the ad and like the funnel itself, right?
Yeah.
So advertorials are usually in the style that they don't have the brand at the top, and they have like a really small thing saying advertorial, but people don't get it. And then it looks like they are reading a newspaper article,
Yeah.
right? And that's why advertorials are crushing it, because people don't really understand that they are being sold to.
Hmm.
They think there's a doctor right now talking about this magical pillow that you have to use so you're getting rid of your neck pain that you had for the last 10 years. And now you have the opportunity to check if there are still some neck pillows available for you to buy now. And only afterwards, you're getting pushed to this offer page, right? So
Yeah.
that's why advertorials are crushing it. Same with listicles, right? Listicles is like a short form of advertorial, or it's not really from like one person and not really like an article, but rather really straight to the point. Here are 5 reasons why everybody's going crazy about this pain relief device that you've
Yeah.
never heard of.
Yeah.
Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5.
Your
And
biggest
then they
bullet.
have like a,
Yeah.
yeah. And then they have this like call to action box at the bottom. And this is amazing because usually what happens, people are being met at a different stage,
Mhm.
right? When you don't have these custom funnels. You have a cold ad, but then you directly push them to a product page that should be way further down in the funnel. And then it's like really difficult to kind of meet this because they just
Mhm.
want to inform themselves about a product, and then you instantly sell to them and then you lose them. And that's why you want to meet them at the same stage, from the ad to the advertorial to a product page, for example, or from like retargeting to a listicle to an offer page, or whatever it may be, right? But it's like so essential to meet them at the stage where they're at and have these custom sales funnels built out. And this is like what we are doing for all of our clients for like Q4, that we build
Mhm.
out these different funnels, different landing pages and everything. And this is where like the whole industry is going to move toward over the next year.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's interesting. Anything else that you can share as a secret sauce from your presentation in Dubai?
Well, I've already shared like two things. First one was like the conversion blueprint, like why
Yep.
people buy these like 4 things. If you take one thing away from this podcast, it's motivate them, show them the value, reduce friction, remove anxiety. Second thing you should take away from this podcast is use custom sales funnels, right? Build out these
Mhm.
custom sales funnels. As soon as you're spending 30 to 50K on a traffic channel a month, it makes sense to invest the time and energy into building the sales funnel. And then the last thing that I'm going to share in Dubai are just like the different case studies of how we improved ROAS by 20-30% in comparison to a different page, or cut down CPA by 35% because we pushed the traffic to a
Huge.
different page, right? Like it's insane. So I just have like a couple of case studies to show them
Mhm.
the urgency and the power of custom sales funnels. So it's not really a secret, but rather like
Yeah.
showing them
Mhm.
these case studies so they understand why they should do it. Because otherwise, it's just that I'm talking about why SEO is fantastic. I'm talking about
Mhm.
why sales funnels is fantastic,
Yep.
and everybody can talk all day long. But I want to kind of show them the math behind it and like the improvements that they get from using these funnels.
Okay. Okay. My next question to you is, where are you getting your inspiration from? Like, how are you getting excited and inspired for new CRO things?
Great question. For me, a long time I've been focused on analyzing big brands, right?
Hmm.
So for this presentation, I analyzed 45 8 and 9 figure companies and like 20 of our clients, right?
Hmm.
Just to kind of understand the commonalities in their funnels and the principles that all of them are using, because it's not really luck, it's not really random that they had 8 or 9 figures and they are pushing out all of this revenue. Like they're using a system, they all have the same principles that they're using for the ads, for the media buying, for the omni-channel presence, for the funnels, for the retention, for the unit economics, everything, right? You can find the same principles and same commonalities, whether you focus on the paid acquisition, whether you focus on the funnels, whether you focus on the retention, or like the backend. So that was really, really exciting to kind of like study that and do the research. But generally for me, the biggest thing is moving away from like what's hot now, the newest hacks, what
Yes.
everybody's doing, rather to understanding the foundations. So when I was in the Oxford University at the VTOW live event, I met a guy and his name is Will Hodges. And he was also one of the speakers, and that's how I connected with him, because he had this amazing presentation about mental frameworks. And what happened was that he was hired to work at Organifi while they were at 18 million a year run rate. And the CEO told him, "Hey, Will, I want to take this to 100 million over the next 2 years." And Will was looking at him like, how the fuck? You're doing 18 million a year right now, and you want to move to 100 million over like the time span of 2 years. Like that's a
Insane.
5x
Yeah.
growth.
Yeah.
Insane. So he was going back and forth. He was about to quit his new job for like a month, right? He didn't know how to do it. And what he did was, and this is the third biggest secret that I'm going to share, and then we have enough secret sauce on this podcast, I
Absolutely.
think.
Absolutely.
What he did was he analyzed what everybody's doing, and he analyzed in the industry what people are putting a lot of value to and what people are undervaluing, right? What he found was that, and he looked at a couple of brands, and what he found was they are paying between 50 to 300K a month to creative agencies, media buying agencies, whatever.
Yeah.
And some of those spend 300K a month on these agencies, and then they have a copywriter for 2K a month, right? So
Yeah.
they are. So what he found is that these D2C brands, that they are all valuing the same stuff, and they are all undervaluing the same stuff. So
Mhm.
that's how he was able to have this crazy growth from 18 million to 100 million within 18
So he
months,
did
right?
it.
He did it in 1.5 years, in 18
Yeah.
months, from I want to say it again, 18 millions a year to 100 million within 1.5 years. Insane. And he was only able to do so because he had a completely different approach to what the whole industry was doing, right? He didn't follow the footsteps, but he rather had a completely different approach.
And that's having both, actually, because if you're going against what people are used to in an industry, you're like, okay, we can completely mess this up, because you can go from 18 million to 8 million as well. You- right? You're changing the approach, and you're like, okay, we're changing stuff, and like we can go from, let's say, 2% conversion rate to 1.5% conversion rate.
Yeah,
It's not always going
definitely.
up, right?
Yeah.
uh,
And like here's the crazy part, bro. He did it with Organifi. He left Organifi. He built a repeatable system out of it, and he did it with 2 other brands.
okay. And he did it.
Same
Like it
scenario.
worked.
They were between
What was
10
the
to
name of the
20
guy
million.
again? So for our listeners to go and follow him as well.
Will Hodges. He's not really on social media,
Okay.
but you can potentially find him online a little bit. But yeah, like insane. So
Typically,
he
people like him are
repeated,
never online.
yeah,
The ones that are
like they
doing
don't
stuff
have
in the
time for
trenches.
that.
Yeah.
So he repeated the same success, the exact same success. It wasn't a one-time moonshot. He repeated the success. and now he's consulting people and coaching people on it.
Hmm.
So I know all of this because I'm working with him one-on-one right now
Okay.
to understand all of this, understand these mental frameworks, right?
Hmm.
And that was the biggest thing for us. Not like stop to analyze what all of the competition is doing, what the other CRO agencies are doing, what the other D2C brands are doing, but rather move away from that. And this is where I have to stop the secret sauce, because
Yeah.
otherwise it's not our secret sauce anymore. But we kind of moved away from like everything that's hot and how everybody is doing, and
Hmm.
focused more on what I can say is like really the foundations, and like a whole different approach to doing CRO. And that's like our differentiator right now. So it was like taking the step back, look how everybody is doing, and find a completely different way. And that has helped us magnificently, like
Okay.
huge.
Last question on the zero part, and then we're moving to some blitz questions.
Okay,
And
sweet.
okay, so my last question is okay, mainly it's two questions actually. Um, are you doing post purchase surveys
Yeah,
through email or like even on a Shopify store? Do you do those?
yeah, yeah.
What are your favorite questions for that to analyze an audience?
You want to get all the knowledge, huh? No, I'm going to share them with you. The favorite questions are designed to understand their pain points,
Mhm.
motives, beliefs, and desires. You have to
Okay.
design questions so you're getting answers to these. And then you can add a
Not just
couple of,
demographics, not just basic questions on who are the competitors that you're buying from, none of the standard stuff, right? No.
then I will get the same answers like anybody else has, right? And
Yeah.
I don't want to create it like a marketing persona of this is Susie, she's 25, she has a dog and 2K a month to spend. I
Yeah.
want to create a persona and say, this is Susie. Susie is buying because she's fearing that her dog will not be at his peak and is feeling good. So her dog is having pain, and her main decision-making hormone is dopamine. So it's really important that in the marketing and in the copywriting we do X, Y, Z, and like all of this, right? I want to do like
Exactly what
a
I wanted from you.
yeah,
Because I'm facing this all the time. And I would just send this to my clients when they are doing a post purchase survey. Because they're always like, oh, but we need the target persona and we need to do this and we need to do this way. I'm like, guys, like, we need to use something for the ads, not for like, we don't care about all of the other stuff. We can
yeah.
get it from Google Analytics. Like, so yeah. Well, no, I think that that's extremely important. And I had some blitz questions. What are your top 5 people to follow in the e-commerce world on LinkedIn or YouTube?
David Fogarty. These top of mind questions are bad, bro. David Fogarty is definitely one of them. Nathan Chan slash founder. They did an incredible job. Wiz of Ecom on Twitter,
Okay.
definitely. Good friend of mine. Shout out to him at this point. He's a creative genius. A German guy, Sebastian Selinski.
Yes. Sebastian's amazing.
You can watch him. I can watch him. Incredible guy. We're
Yeah.
walking. We are together working on tons of projects. Amazing guy. Really one of the few guys who's like has an insane track record and nobody knows him.
Hmm.
So he would be the fourth person. Fifth person, Mark Weininger, also German guy. I have to put more German guys on the
Yeah.
map.
Oh, you know
Um,
what? And that's fair because like internationally, you're not still recognized enough, and I think that you're doing such a great job. And that yeah, you need to get some more recognition because everyone knows the biggest names, and they're always there. And sometimes they're there just because they're famous, not because they're bringing that much value, right? And then there are
yeah,
people who are coming from the trenches, as I like to say, who've done such a great job just
yeah.
privately, and nobody knows about that.
Yeah, I'm just
Uh,
right now. I have like 10 names in my head that I could drop on. In the beginning was so yeah.
okay, now what are your favorite books to read? You mentioned psychology. What are your favorite books to read?
Awaken the Giant Within from Tony Robbins. The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. I have like all of my Relentless by Tim S.
Okay.
Grover. Let me look at my books over there. Those are my three favorites. I'm reading them again and again and again. Um, I picked up a lot of Breakthrough advertising, scientific advertising, $100 million offers. Um, yeah, I could give you
What?
like 100 books right now, but I want to keep it to those.
Okay. What's the one book that has changed your professional career the most?
How to Awaken the Giant Within from Tony Robbins, because to explain it to those of you who don't know who he is or who don't know the book, it's like a user manual for your brain.
Okay.
So it will completely change the way that you think and how you approach everything, and it will help you with your own self and then also with like everybody that you're like working with. So it's insane.
Okay. Okay. And last thing, if you can give one piece of advice to every e-commerce store owner out there in the world, what would it be?
Stick to the foundations.
Okay. Being a big fundamental guy.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And since our time is almost up, I just wanted to thank you for being my guest. Thank you for being absolutely amazing and sharing so much to everyone. And yeah, because the idea of the podcast is to share value, not to be like, oh, I mean, I know my stuff, and I'll just keep it for myself. But what I've seen is that when I'm helping others achieve great results, they're also helping me become a better person and being a better professional. And I know for a fact that you've grown so much in the past few years, and especially in the past year from the moment I've been following you. And it's probably because you're helping many people and they're helping you as well.
Yeah. It's
So
you get what you give, bro. You get what you give.
exactly. So yeah, thank you for being my guest. I have an idea that I'll share with you that popped in my mind when we were making the episode. We can actually make a joint lecture, a CRO, like an e-commerce lecture on, yeah, with the slides, with the presentations, with everything, and yeah, for 8 and 9 figure e-com businesses. But yeah, we can
Sweet.
talk about it more
Yeah.
in the future as well.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. This episode was amazing. You're an amazing host, and you asked the right questions. That's like the biggest thing that I see. You have to ask the right questions to get the best answers. So you did that. So thank you so much for having me, bro.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thanks everyone that listened to the third episode of the Marketamics podcast. Stay tuned for more episodes when they're live. And yeah, share with your friends or your other e commerce friends and colleagues. That's all for today. See ya.
Sweet. Take care.